Yerdumang yundo Letetia. Pato dirma radriena. Megan de bala ingrambo. Kempo. Balado goyal tarangialang. So I just said, good day. My name is Letetia, but my name is obviously Letetia Harris. I said I'm an Ingram and a Kemp. I said I'm a proud Wiradjuri woman. And I said that I belong to Kooyal Creek. That is my belonging and my identity. I'll tell you about my language journey, and I'll tell you when I first was introduced to fluent Wiradjuri language. I was working in a school as an Aboriginal education assistant at St Clair's College. I was 19 years old, little baby me, fresh face, gorgeous, pretty. I wish I was back there. Anyway, I was 19 years old. I was working as this Aboriginal education assistant that was implementing Aboriginal perspectives into all of the classrooms in different subjects. So I was trying to be tricky about how I got an Aboriginal voice into the space. So I was asked by a Year 9 English class, and I remember it was Year 9 English class, if I could put some Aboriginal perspectives into English. So me being a little bit of a smart ass went, English language? Wiradjuri language, right? And so I thought other language, right? And I was like, rung my dad, rung Auntie Judy Harris, and was like, what could I do? Who could I actually ask to come into the school? So Auntie Judy suggested Uncle Stan Grant, and Dad suggested Uncle Stan Grant. And I was like, oh, and Auntie Judy said, but he works for the Department of Education. All right, so I worked for Catholic Education. They're not friends. They're not supposed to be anyway. But lo and behold, I rung him up and asked him, and he said, literally to his bosses at the Department of Education, can I go do this? And they said, you can do whatever you want, Stan. So he came over and he came into the classroom, and I was like ready to get up and introduce him. I was super proud. I was like, this is someone who's really deadly and pretty awesome. And I'd never even heard him actually speak language like fluently. And he pointed me over to the corner and said, sit down. Didn't let me introduce him, got up, introduced himself, and it was fluent Wiradjuri. And every part of me just like woke up, and all the hairs on my arms were like lit up, like they were all up on ends. It was like electricity. And it was like I understood that was me. That was mine. That was my people. It was like that energy that I couldn't even describe to anyone. And I was just like, what? Like, I was in awe of him, and I was in awe of that this was like me, and this is the first time I'm hearing me and my language, like in that way, and not just singular words like guangi or dupi or something like that. It was actually this fluent speaking that was just resonating, and it was just, like a pulse. I can't even describe it still. And then about 6 or 7 years later, I'm in Sydney, and one of my mates at work, I was working in the Centre for Aboriginal Health, she came in with this tiny little newspaper article thing. It was like, this big, tiny little thing, and it said Wiradjuri language being taught at Alexandra Community College. And I was like, what? And she said, you should do that, you should do. And I was like, it was just like I was going to jump on it. There was no way I wasn't going to run at it. And so I went there and met Uncle Christopher Kirkbright, Auntie Cheryl Riley, and Uncle Borolinga Gummul. I later lived with Auntie Cheryl Riley for a couple of years. And so I met, and Uncle Borolinga, his English name's George Fisher. So unfortunately, Auntie Cheryl and Uncle Borolinga are both passed. I met them. They were teaching language. It was a tiny class. It was like maybe 9 people in it. It was like, unbelievable. They saw something in me, and I was just like, oh. And I think I was going one day a week, and after about 2 months, Uncle Stan turns up. right, for a visit into the language class, or like 2 or 3 months, maybe it was. Anyway, and he's there and he walks up to me and, because he knows my dad and he knows my uncle, like they were friends and still are. And I was sort of like, oh yeah, and he's going to speak to me in language. And I was like packing it. And he said something to me, and I think it was Yaman no Babin Marang or something like that, or Yaman, and all I could hear, it means, is your father good? Right? All I heard was the first bit, which I knew that was a question that I had to go yes or no, Yama. And it was like, oh no, there's a yes or no to this. And Babin, which is dad. So I just reply, looking like I'm real deadly, Ngawa, which means yes. And he was going to Uncle Gidge and Uncle Christopher Kirkbright, call him Uncle Gidge. He was saying, oh yeah, she's done, oh, you're doing really good with this one. And, of course, come out that I said, look, I seriously only recognised that. But he said, praised me up for recognising it. Anyway, Uncle Christopher Kirkbright, Anisha O'Reilly, myself, and Borrelinger and myself, I followed them around like a bad smell, like I was their shadow. But they pushed me into teaching, right? And they said, no, you're going to get up. And I remember we're in Bathurst at the moment filming. We were in Raglan, which is literally on the outskirts of Bathurst. We'd come here for a community workshop. They were going to teach at it, and I was just following them around like this little kid. And they said, what are you going to teach tomorrow? And I went, what? And they said, I went, what are you talking about? We're in the hotel, which was like, I think all four of us in like 2 rooms in this dodgy dive of a hotel. Because you didn't get any Wallang, you got like what you got. It's like if you're turning up, or if we had some, you didn't get any money, sorry. We turned up there and they were asking me what I was going to teach the next day. I literally wrote a thing called the Family Kinship game in language, which is a sort of fluency game with a cheat sheet. I still teach that today. I made it better now, but I still teach that today. Yeah, so then we did that for, a decade. I moved to, I don't know if it was a decade, but years. Moved to Newcastle, moved to Canberra, had my son, moved to Newcastle, went all around from, but still always kept working on language with them, and would work on resources and trying to get resources developed off the smell of an oily rag. Always keeping in contact with Uncle Stan. Moved back home to Cara. Was teaching back home where my father lives, because I don't want to get shot by people in Cara saying that I'm calling it home. I taught some language in the school because they discovered that I could teach, that I could speak Wiradjuri, and so I tacked onto my job a little bit of language for the Year 7 late classes, and made sure I cleared it with Uncle Stan as well, and was communicating heaps more with Uncle Stan. And so then he was like, pushing me towards, I want you to go do this uni course. I want you to do this uni course. This uni course is about to start. And it was 2 years probably before the course even started that he was telling me about, that this is going to start. He forced me into doing the course. I brought along my deadly brother, Harry, who I'd helped with language and taught him a fair whack of language. And so the course was the Wiradjuri Graduate Certificate in Language, Heritage and Culture, CSU, Charles Sturt University. Yeah, so I brought my mate Harry Lambshead along to come to the course with me and learn. And lo and behold, first day of the course, I'm stirring up Uncle in Wiradjuri and teasing him, and he was teasing me back and joking around, and then he started, paying me back for that. So I ended up having to get up and teach them head, shoulders, knees and toes in Wiradjuri, and, little bits. He would just say, get me up a bit more, and he'd get me up a little bit more, in times. And then by the next cohort starting, when this was only run for 18 months, he said, you can come in and teach the mornings for the Wiradjuri Graduate Certificate in Language, Heritage and Culture. And I went, oh, okay, me and Harry. So me and Harry, the little pair that ran around teaching language together. We come there and we teach in the morning. We go to our last subject class, and he says, "Where are you going?" I said, "Well, I'm going to class because we've still got, our class going." He said, "No, you're not." So I think we attended maybe 6 hours of our own class during that last subject, and we taught the new cohort that would come through, and then been doing it ever since. So, that was 2015 when he asked me to do that. And so, yeah, I was also teaching at TAFE as well because he asked me to do that as well. So when the Tumut community and elders asked for someone to come in and teach language at the TAFE, they called Uncle Stan. Uncle Stan said, "Call Tish." And then made sure that we were okay and we weren't dodgy when we came in, and Harry and I went and taught there and apologised to the elders because we were so, younger people teaching them their language. Some of the joys of teaching language is the first thing of watching what people do the same way that I did with Uncle Stan was when people hear their own language for the first time in a fluent way, and they're just like, "That's me, that's mine, that's my identity, this is who I am." And I watch people just like, it's like they haven't breathed for all that time. They've been holding their breath, and that's the best bit. I love watching people pass on language. So I'm like, you've got this, and then you pass it on. I love watching people's brain be able to think in their own language. And when they think in their own language, that's fluency. So when they're able to hear and communicate back, that's like brilliant. Yeah, it's inspiring. As a teacher, challenges in teaching language are teaching our elders is, something that doesn't feel like the right way because, and they have living memory of these things. They have living memory of their language being whispered, and they have all that stuff there, and they should have been able to have that, So we go in and we apologise that we shouldn't be, but we're being instructed by Uncle Stan as well at the same time. So elders are very accommodating and, really caring, and they love it. And, they're the best speakers too. They're just the best. Because that they've heard the language their whole, part of their lives, big fluent pieces. They know lots of language, singular words. So you're able to just go, oh, they're the absolute best speakers. And the other challenges are accountability. So, you sort of drop a pebble, but how do you make sure that, I'm here, I'll give you this, I'm teaching it, not giving to you. I'm teaching you language, this is yours. But how do you make sure that people are then continuing the journey to make sure that they're doing it right? They're checking. Sometimes you teach people and then they think that they have the authority to then take a space that isn't necessarily theirs to take. They still need to ask permissions. So there's those things. If we can educate about that, then the less mistakes get made, right? So, if we can really be mindful that this is language reclamation, right? And that people are able to make mistakes and they're able to be fixed. Because I've made mountains of mistakes, but I've fixed them. I'm sure there's mistakes that I don't know about that I'll have to go and fix, and that's okay. This is head, shoulders, knees and toes in Wiradjuri language, all right? Balangana bungambo borome, bungambo borome, bungambo borome, balangana bungambo borome, talberangi ambalgale. Melbo woodabo ngambo morobo ngambo morobo ngambo morobo melbo woodabo ngambo morobo talberangi ambalgale. Yay! I know of lots of Wiradjuri spaces, and I know of my space that I use music to sustain language and cultural practices more specifically as well. So we have lots of people like Uncle Stan Grant who've produced lots of music and songs and CDs that have either translated songs like Head, Shoulders, Knees and Toes, or other English songs into Wiradjuri, which is like Silent Night, things like that. There's actually one, he's got Hymns of My Old People, that he's translated all of them into Wiradjuri language, which is like so beautiful, and it literally hits the target audience that he wants. So if you've got Hymns of My Old People, you can tell that that's sort of around his age group with elders and things like that, keeping those things alive. Then you've got kids' songs, and he's got lots of those songs as well. People have been singing for ages. So, Gulambali Wibi and the Galanga, Gulambali Wibi and the Galanga. That means pelican sitting on the water. He's got those type of songs that he's created, which is so awesome, because then you've got these songs that actually teach you language sentence structure, right? So you're like, oh, I understand that because this is blah, 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 blah. Kids are singing it, adults are singing it, and they're like unbeknowingly knowing the actual fluent language structure. So when they get to someone like other language lessons, and I go da 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 da, and they go, oh, I already know this, which is like powerful. Or they've learned language and then they're like cementing it with that music. Then there's other ways that people are using it. Yeah, Ani Swanee, I call her Ani Swanee, which is Ani Elaine Lomas. She uses music in the Wiradjuri graduate certificate and sings, and she's written her own songs about being proud, right? She's used tunes that people recognise so that they're able to quickly map and drop those words in. And she talks about being proud of being Wiradjuri and being awesome and respectful and powerful. Like, these words that she puts into her songs are amazing. Like, they really lift people, and she gets them in a choir and she makes them do them in loops and stuff like that. And they remember the words, and she teaches some of Uncle Stan's songs, like Waltzing Matilda is probably one of the hardest songs to learn. And it's got a lot of words and it's very wordy to try and get your tongue around. But she teaches that and they remember it. So they are like using, and they acknowledge everyone, they acknowledge each other in the songs that they've developed and things like that. It's powerful. And these are like elders teaching. Like, that's powerful, right? You can't get better than that. The other way is ceremonial songs and things like that. So I've written songs that have come to me. They're very traditional sounding, and some of which have come to me that I had to go look up the dictionary because I didn't know. This song is, I call it the Sending Them Home song. So in the Titters, there's a scene that's a funeral, and it's in, Wiradjuri country. And you wanted to use this Singing Them Home song, and I would normally be like, oh no, but because it's in a theatre and it's heard once, and it's not in a film or something that keeps going out and being recycled, it maintains its power in reference to the space. So in being able to culturally connect with our own language and actually hearing that Sending Them Home way, like a funeral song, sending them home meaning sending them back to the dreaming. Like, yeah, it's really powerful in that theatrical space, and it allows the audience to actually feel that energy that we feel and we resonate with, in that we as Wiradjuri people and as Aboriginal people, where we feel that energy in that space of grief, and that and we understand the dreaming. We're like, this is something we are thinking, breathing, doing, and so that, I think that's really powerful to be used in the theatre, especially with the funeral song. I don't let people record it because it's, the way that it came to me was very special. It's definitely a communication with the old people, and I sing it, and I put myself in a space when I sing people home that is definitely another cultural space that I wouldn't want people to just think that it's a funeral song and you just sing it at a funeral and it loses its significance, and also they're dancing with stuff that they don't really know, right? There's lots of situations where people hear a song and they think, oh, because of the colonial world, because the white world goes, oh, you hear a song and you can repeat it and sing it and you just get a guitar and da-da-da. Our songs are got cultural and spiritual significance, and they're connected to ceremonial actions. So they're not for like, oh, let me just film it and share everywhere. You know what I mean? For some of our songs are like, you know, yeah, I think go for it. Get it out there. Get people hearing it. You know, we've just got to be aware of what is what and be okay with it. What it's for public domain and what's for special times, special things, you know, sacred things. Don't try and take someone else's story, you know. You ask permission. It's like really most basic of basic things. Can I film you? And do you mind if this gets put on YouTube? Can I film you? Do you mind if I put this on Facebook? Yes, I bloody do. No, I don't want you to film me. And then other times, do you mind if I film you and put this on Facebook? I'm like, go for it. Like, because it's something joyous and fun and awesome. It's just like, you know, ask the question and be real about if you've taken, you know, like don't take photos of people that they don't have permission. So don't film people that you don't have permission, because it's not a performance. That's the thing, you know, it's not a performance in that space. It's like, yeah, bigger than that. So in the digital space, the challenges we have, the biggest challenge is access, and it's access on all sides. So I'll first, maybe accountability first. So when you put something out, make it right. Check with people. Don't just run with something because you've had 2 minutes of language, you know, and you go, oh, yes, I know how that works. Check it. Get multiple people to check it. And people that have that language fluency, get them to check it so that you're like, oh, I'm not putting out stuff that's not right. And ask permission of the things you're going to share. Same thing, like ask permission of the things you're going to create. But I think one of the biggest things is when we create digital media, a lot of the time we're like, all right, here we go, we've made it, there you go. But every time that they need to access it, they need internet. So then we're not like really getting to the people or all the people that we actually want to give access to. You know, I don't have internet. I don't have data. I can't watch that 30 times that I need to be able to remember that language and to be able to have that pieces of language, because I don't have that money. The other thing is the same way of getting people's stories told that they want to be told. How did they have access to the digital media to make that happen? So it's like this loop that you constantly have to be asking the question of how am I making this accessible? And that also the digital data is a piece. It's a tool. It's not the lot, right? It's the tool. It's not the whole picture. I was asked by someone the other day, this one wanted to just sign off with a language word. And I said, yeah, are they mob? No. Where did they learn it? So they've obviously got a relationship. No. They seen a video of blah, 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 and now they want to use that to sign off. I said, no, this is about relationships, right? You know, so immediately I'm like watching what happens in this space, you know, thinking, oh, come on. The digital data, the digital resource that gets created is a piece of the full picture. If you don't get face-to-face teaching and learning, you may be mispronouncing it all over the place because you might have digital data that's animation, and you can't see where the tongue goes in the mouth, and you know what way it's supposed to be placed. It has to be a piece of all these tools and resources, but you have to get the face-to-face so that this is the supplement that helps it, keeps kicking along, and so that you're able to retain and retain because you're watching this digital information and you've got access to the digital information. And the people that are telling the stories have access to make the digital. Oh, copyright and intellectual property, yeah, well, that's 100%. You need to know what you're putting out there and who's going to be accessing it and for how long they're going to be accessing it. And a lot of the time people are like, well, I want this out to my mob, and so they just let it keep going because they want their mob to be able to speak the language. Sometimes you've got CDs or something like that, and you're like, oh, well, they pay for that. And they pay for another one and another one and another one. Or they pay for licensing of something, for a period of time. Yeah, so, once again, you're back in access, but especially around stories, cultural intellectual property. Some communities want their story to be told, but within that, or a story to be told, and they want to have a digital representation of that. In that, I would tell communities to have something within it to say that this is the cultural intellectual property of blah, right? Because it'll be surface knowledge of the story, generally. Otherwise, they might be getting digital resources and creating digital resources that are sort of kept in a way that only certain people can access it, but that keeps the deeper depth of the story alive. So there's so many ways around it. We have specific protocols, but we have specific protocols around who teaches, right? Who teaches our language, and they need to adhere to a digital space as well. So Wiradjuri should be teaching Wiradjuri language. I would press that further, Wiradjuri with actual proper language knowledge should be teaching Wiradjuri language, I don't know how that is able to be monitored, but yeah, that's what we really should be doing. We should be adhering to those things. We still should be adhering to the community protocols when we're producing something. So we should be saying, asking permission still, like from our elders, from the storytellers, from the story holders, all those things. When we're putting out things, we should be checking them, and they should be being done by our own mob. Well, not should. They need to be being done by our own mob. Should is too empty. Like Wiradjuri should be responsible for using their own language in music, and it should be our thing. I will share a song with you, but I am very serious that this isn't a song that I'm sharing with you for you to go and sing. This is a song that I'm sharing because it demonstrates the power of my language. Ngina bala marang bamilang, ngina bala marang bamilang, ngina bala marang bamilang, ngawa ngawa. Ngana bala marang bamilang, ngana bala marang bamilang, ngana bala marang bamilang, ngawa ngawa. Warko ngina marang bamilang, ngina radring urambang, ngina ngadi bagaregan, yambuang marang bamilang. Ngina bala marang bamilang, ngina bala marang bamilang, ngina bala marang bamilang, ngawa ngawa. Ngana bala marang bamilang, ngana bala marang bamilang, ngana bala marang bamilang, ngawa ngawa. Warko ngina marang bamilang, ngina yuradring urambang, ngina ngadi bagaregan, yambuang marang bamilang. It's a relational song, right? So it's about relationships being recognised. And so just to let you know that my son, Luke Whiten, and myself have helped teach the kids, my son and Luke have taught kids at dance about the relationship that I'm singing about. So I talk about kia. Here is exceedingly good. Marang Balang means exceedingly good. Sometimes we use it for deadly. Here is exceedingly good. Here is exceedingly good. And they're pointing to all the places that are like close to them, that are in a relationship to them that is exceedingly good. And then they point at people. They can say that. So ngana balamarang bamilang, ngana balamarang balang. They can point to the magpie. Right, they're bringing this relationship of this exceedingly goodness on their country, right? And then they talk about, then I say the question, Warkung in the Marambangwilang means, why is this exceedingly good? And then I say, it's Wiradjuri country, because it's Wiradjuri country, because it's my mob, right? It says, yeah, Warkung in the Marambangwilang in the Wiradjuri Ngurambang in the Ngadi Bagaregan, Number one Marambangwilang means, this is my mob. Everything here in all its entirety is exceedingly good. It's basically that I'm connected to. The thing that I would like to add is I want to thank the teachers that have nurtured me for 23 years and pushed me sometimes along the way into even doing things that I really, didn't necessarily want to teach or do, but who keep pouring goodness into me, like Uncle Stan keeps directing me and Uncle Gidge keeps directing me. And so I want to thank Uncle Stan Grant Sr. I want to thank Uncle Christopher Kirkbride. I want to thank my beautiful auntie and uncle that are in the dreaming, Auntie Cheryl Riley and Uncle Boralinga Gumu in the dreaming there, that I used to call Bapin Gama. I used to call him Father Storm and he called me Bobe Mickey, Little Lightning. So, yeah. So I want to thank them for what they've given me, what they've given my son, and what they have given, our people. And I'm just truly grateful.